made such a fool out of me. They made a fool out of all of us. Nintendo did it again with Switch Online, and I'm so freaking sad. That's kind of the bottom line with this one. It's depressing. Good morning, Mario, and good morning, Switch fans. I don't mean to start your day off with a little bit of sadness, but we got to be honest about it, and we got to come through with what Nintendo has not done in the Switch Online space and how it really betrays where I thought they were going and what I thought they'd figured out. And I don't know how they can keep doing this. So what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. I'm miffed. It's a good word. Miffed. M-I-F-F-E-D. Hit that like button if you enjoy the show, and let's get right to it. Nintendo Switch Online was in a great place, okay? They came through in the February Direct, and they did what we all dreamed of, and they did it at once. They were like, hey, we've got Game Boy Color, and we got Game Boy Advance. Now, Nintendo's MO with Switch Online is to be slow, to be steady, to be absolutely like a freaking snail, right? Drip, feed, like a sink with a little bit of a leak problem. That's what they do. So after Game Boy Color, we were like, okay, that's it. But they did Game Boy Advance too, and we were like, oh my gosh, they get us, they understand. They've been keeping up with these monthly N64 releases. Now they're adding Game Boy and Game Boy Color. They showed an exciting lineup. We're thinking Pokemon, we're thinking Zelda, we're thinking Metroid, we're thinking Golden Sun, we're thinking a lot of really good things. And now finally, Switch Online is in this beautiful, healthy, vibrant, virulent place where it can grow and build into the true Netflix of Nintendo that we've always dreamed of it being. It's Virtual Console for a really cheap monthly price, and even at the expansion pack $50 charge, we're talking like $4 a month for all this Nintendo loveliness. And they started off really great. If we look to the list, they started off really great, right? They said, hey, February 8th, we drop all these GBA games, and guess what? March 9th, a month later, we're right back at it with Metroid Fusion. All right, they did GBC, right? They brought Game Boy Color. We were like, okay, they brought some in. We thought this was really nice. March 15th, 2 new Game Boy Color games. They were right there, right? Right after the Metroid Fusion release, they brought in Burger Time Deluxe. They brought in Kirby's Dream Land 2. We're like, okay, they're really doing good stuff. They really get us. And on the N64 front, they were like, okay, hey, we announced all these games last year, and you know what? We got GoldenEye on January 27th, and we got Pokemon Stadium on April 12th, and they're really in a roll, and we're like, okay, what's the next Game Boy Advance game? What's next? And we're still asking the same freaking question. They unveiled Game Boy and Game Boy Advance at a great time in February for the Direct, where they needed some oomph because they didn't have a whole lot to announce because Nintendo is being crazy this year. And then, since February 8th, we're now going on June, okay? So in the last almost 4 months, they've put out one Game Boy Advance game, and I just can't. Look, I stood up and I said this was the Virtual Console, the Switch library we've been waiting for Nintendo's back catalog. They're doing good work, they're on a schedule, they're on a track, they're really being amazing. And they really didn't. They really have just screwed the pooch. I don't even know what that terminology means, you just hear it a lot. They have bucked it all up again. They have really just taken us back to the archaic ages. So here's what we've got. Since March 9th, when Metroid Fusion came out and it seemed like, okay, we're going to do a Game Boy Advance game per month, and we know that they talked about Golden Sun would be next, F-Zero Maximum Velocity, Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, and we have hopes for, lots of other Game Boy Advance games. We've got a little drop for Game Boy Color, which I told you about on March 15th. We got one N64 game, April 12th, and we got a random assortment. March 15th, they also dropped a Super Nintendo game, and March 15th, they also dropped an NES game. It was kind of like a classic whatever. And then they dropped Pokemon Stadium in April, and now, instead of utilizing all of these systems to create a really great grouping every month where we have, okay, something for expansion pack members like an N64 or Game Boy Advance, something for regular subscribers, something old, something newer, something that still fills out the catalog of NES, but something that adds to the catalog of Game Boy. Now we're doing this thing where we alternate every single month, and so we're spreading them out even further. I did not think this was possible, but Nintendo is stretching it even further. We have not gotten a Game Boy Advance game in 3 months. In the 4 months since this platform launched, 3.5 months, whatever, we've got one Metroid Fusion. We've got one Game Boy Color drop, and we've got one Game Boy Advance game. And between January and April, we got one N64 game. So between January and May, another 4-month gap, one N64 game. So they are betraying last year's cadence of one game per month for N64, and instead they're filling it with one random drop across one of our systems that maybe doesn't even benefit the higher paying subscribers per month. We suck, is what they're saying. It's not hard to put these emulated titles on the platform. It's not hard to build out a beautiful library, and Nintendo has no excuse. There is no reason to slow it down to this pace, to withhold in this way. There's no reason. They want to keep Nintendo Switch Online going for Switch 2 and probably Switch 3 and beyond, and at this point, they're planning on dragging these lineups across all of those consoles. They want to be releasing a new Game Boy Advance game in 2028 on the Switch 3. That is their goal, that is their dream, that is what they want to do, and frankly, I hate it. I really thought we had reached something new when they were doing one N64 per month last year. That was really nice. That was really I mean, it could be faster, but at least that was like a reliable cadence that we could trust and we could count on, and it felt like they were, okay, getting in a good groove. Well, that groove has been completely scraped out of whatever surface they're operating on, and I feel like it's the moon because they don't have a reality. We pay for these services and we love these games because we want to play them. It does not hurt Nintendo Switch Online to release these more frequently. It only benefits the program. More people would subscribe if there was a better catalog, and I think they feel like they're trying to do some weirdo like, oh, don't let them binge, release one per week, but it's really one per month. But if you like a specific platform, it's really now once per 4 months, and that's just absolutely unacceptable. I don't know how you can release a Game Boy Advance update and then you touch on it once in 4 months. We're talking about games that released 20 years ago. We're not saying, hey, give us a free new Switch game. We're not saying bring out a new first-party game. We're saying 20-year-old titles that you have a huge back catalog, and we've already seen via nerd emulation leaks that you have a bunch of games ready to go and tested. Yet they are dragging this out at a pace now that is slower than ever. In fact, this is worse than it used to be when we would get a random drip feed of NES and Super Nintendo, because now with the alternating nature, you know that the game you want, depending on if you're a GBA fan, an N64 fan, whatever fan you are, is going to be so drawn out. Nintendo has so many great games for Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. N64 is more limited, yes, but they've already announced a bunch. They have an N64 lineup that is supposed to be 1080 snowboarding, Excite Bike, Harvest Moon, Mario Party 3, Pokemon Stadium 2, and I don't get it. Well, I do get it. They think that somehow this makes them more money, but all it does is make Switch Online seem like something you can drop, something that's expendable, and something in the grand scheme of all the streaming services and all the monthly subscriptions you pay, you don't need. I really wanted to champion Switch Online in February when they were in a great place. I thought with Game Boy Advance, with the quick release of Metroid Fusion exactly a month later, I thought we were in a great spot. I thought we were going to do like a Game Boy Advance game a month, an N64 game a month, and really kind of build this nice sort of like Switch Online show where we could every month say, hey, we got this for Game Boy Advance and this for N64. And if you're not one of our expansion pack subscribers, we got this for Game Boy Color and this for Super Nintendo or NES, or to throw one of those random ones in there. Instead, we are doing this alternating freaking leapfrog, duck, duck, goose game, and there's no semblance of release order anymore. There's no calendar. There's no schedule. There's no reliability. There's just really, really, really tiny drip feed. And we're back to that. 7 systems, and we're doing 1 drop per month. And we don't know what it's going to be, or where it's going to be from, or if it's going to be anything that anyone remotely cares about. Because the last NES and SNES drop, you had Side Pocket, which is a pool game, and Xevious. Okay, some people might want to play Xevious from Bandai, but it's just not enough. You have taken Nintendo Switch Online from a bad place to a really good place, and you've thrown it back in the gutter, and I hate it. I want to love this service. I want to be a big champion of it and a big fan of it because I have such a history with Nintendo, playing these games since I was 4 years old when I got my NES as a hand-me-down from my uncle. I was hooked ever since. And I want this back catalog experience to be something that we can be excited about and we can say is a great value add to Nintendo Switch. But the way that they continue to do things and the way that they continue to shoot themselves in the foot after setting up a great system of monthly releases and an opportunity to drop interesting titles on each platform every month for a great lineup of Nintendo Switch Online games that cater to more than one person, cater to maybe everyone, they have absolutely eviscerated the opportunity by going back to this slow drip feed where we don't even understand or know what they're doing. February 8th is when they announced Game Boy Advance. We have Metroid Fusion to show for it. It's coming up on June. That's not okay. This is not the virtual console. This is the slow console. This is the intermittently connected console where we don't know what we're getting and nobody likes that. Nobody deserves that. And Nintendo, you can do so much better. Whatever executives are telling you that drip feed is the way to go, it's how you hook people, it's how you keep them, it's working, it's not. It's making everyone mad. And we don't deserve this. 10 million people just paid $70 for Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom for no reason except that you wanted more money. Fix Switch Online. Do monthly releases. This is absurd. Oh, by the way, I didn't even mention that they're shutting down Pac-Man 99. What the heck? Why? Why can't you make Nintendo Switch Online great? You have such an opportunity. This could be the best video game subscription service, and it's back to being one of the worst. Guess I should never have believed in them. They added Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. It seemed too good to be true, and guess what? It was. Switch Online is back to suckage, and it really stinks. Let me know if you agree, what your thoughts are in the comments down below. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love you lots. SwitchForce. Out.